When you cut this, this is not regular blood. This is Armenian and Assyrian blood. It's hot. It's very hot. We need to sit in a room with 100 of the most influential Armenians and Assyrians and say, guys, we're looking good. We are looking good. My dad's last name is Bet-David and my mother's last name is Bogosian. And I'm the son of an Armenian and an Assyrian. When this whole conversation about Armenian genocide, it's also Assyrian genocide and the Greek genocide. Both Democrats and Republicans have claimed that they're going to make it official, and Reagan said it and Obama said it. Neither one of them have done it because when it came down to it, they were afraid of it. Because if they tie it to a genocide, they saw what happened to the Jewish community with Germany, because there comes the reparation laws. Trump grew up being a fan of Kirk Kerkorian. Most people don't know this. When this guy was 23 years old, and that happened to me with my dad, I was the guy that was at the nightclubs in LA 5, 6, 7 days a week chasing a woman. The next day, my priorities changed like this. My friends couldn't recognize me because these eyes changed. Once these eyes changed, priorities changed. Then everything became a reality. One of the guys was crying because his wife left him for his best friend. Pretty painful experience when you're in boot camp and you get a letter from your wife saying, I left you for your best friend. He's crying, he's in tears. We need more of our elderly parents to not pass this victimhood mentality to their kids and their grandkids. You get any Armenian doctor that sits with me, 95% of them don't have as much money as people think they have. He's a pretty well-known guy in the IT world. He says he trusts Armenian engineers more than Indian engineers. I said, come on. Yes, I'm telling you, Armenian engineers are starting to become the best engineers worldwide.
Welcome to Zartonk Media, everyone. We're a new age independent Armenian multimedia news outlet. This is our first on-air interview, and we're lucky enough to have a very special and distinguished guest with us today, and Patrick Bet-David. Patrick's the founder of PHP Agency, which is an insurance sales, marketing, and distribution company. He's written a number of books and amassed over 2.1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, Valuetainment. With that, our guest, Patrick Bet-David. Patrick, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Of course. So I guess we'll start with your beginnings. For those who don't know you, Patrick, you're half Armenian, half Assyrian. You're born in Iran. What can you tell us a little bit more about your upbringing?
Born and raised in Iran. My mother is Armenian. Her family escaped Baku, Azerbaijan, to go to at that time Bandar Pahlavi, which was north of Tehran. And my father's family escaped Almas, which is a place in Iraq, when it used to be Assyria, but Iraq, they escaped, they came to Tehran, they met each other, got married. I lived there for 10 years. In Iran, 6 weeks after Khomeini died, we escaped to Germany. I lived at a refugee camp in Germany for a couple of years. And then came to the States at November 28, 1990 to Glendale, California. Lived there for 6 years, joined the US Army, got out of the Army, wanted to be a bodybuilder. And be the Middle Eastern Arnold. And then I got into the financial services industry, started working at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, a day before 9/11, and left Morgan Stanley, went to Transamerica, October of 2009. I started my own insurance company. And we now have 14,000 agents nationwide, 130 different offices, 500,000 square feet of office space. De La Hoya is one of my investors. Gabriel Brenner is one of my investors. And also on the social media side, we grew it to what you said, 2.1 million subs and a few billion views on all of social media combined. So that's briefly my background.
Patrick, what was it like juggling your Armenian and Assyrian identities? I mean, obviously, like both Armenians and Assyrians were close culturally and religiously. So what was that like for you?
It was very easy for me. You know, Assyrians and Armenians, they always debate who's the first Christian. You know, Armenians think they're the first, Assyrians think they're the first. To me, since I'm half Armenian and half Assyrian, I know I'm the first. So, you know, one of my ethnicities is going to be first, but it's a very underlying competitive spirit between the two cultures, between Armenians and Assyrians. Assyrians, they were known for being very strong in the military back in the days, being the first warriors when you read historically. And Armenians are known for being some of the most incredible leaders of the faith of Christianity with what they did there. And then on the creative side, Assyrians' claim of fame is they started capitalism with mercantilism back in the days. and a lot of different things that they invented. And same with the Armenians. You know, a lot of great scholars and intellectuals worldwide, Armenians and Assyrians, and they took the business side as well and done great things on both ends on the business side. But it wasn't that difficult. It was easy knowing my dad's last name is Bet-David and my mother's last name is Boghosian, and I'm the son of an Armenian and an Assyrian, which kind of worked out for me.
Patrick, let's track back a bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about your family story within the context of the Armenian Genocide? Do you know where your family came from in Western or historic Armenia, which you already mentioned in Baku?
Yeah, Baku. I mean, my mother's side is Baku, and you know, when this whole conversation about Armenian genocide, it's also Assyrian genocide and the Greek genocide. You know, you got three different communities that all are all in one, with the fear of the spread of Christianity at that time was concerning. But yeah, on my mother's side, they were all from Russia, then they went to Azerbaijan, then Baku, then Iran. So the lineage goes back there.
Back in November, whenever the US House passed HRS 296, you ended up sharing our graphic to your social media. So what was it like to hear that for you?
It was progress. I mean, it's progress. We went Senate, then we went, you know, House, Congress, and then it's Trump. But progress, it's not fully fulfilled yet. We are making progress, but we're not done with what needs to be taking place. And for the final, for the White House and the Trump and the country to make that official, that's going to take a little bit more work. But again, we are making progress.
Patrick, 2 years ago in a video that you made dedicated to the Armenian Genocide, which you posted on Valuetainment and Facebook, you said that we should be taking our demands from the streets onto Twitter, where we can catch President Trump's eye and attention. So does that still apply today? And how can we take our cause forward?
More than ever before, except now this time you don't have a choice, because you cannot take the Armenian genocide to the streets, which is beautiful for the Armenian genocide component of it, because finally Armenians will have to be forced to go march on Twitter and social media. Facebook is irrelevant. YouTube is not even that relevant. And I'm a YouTube guy. It's Twitter, because that's where the president is at. You got to go where he's at. You don't go to a place where he's not at. You need to go on Twitter, and every single Armenian around the world, if this is a matter that's important to them, which I would assume it is, they need to be able to make a case. And you cannot go on the bashing case. It's not going to work if you go out there and say you're the worst president of all time, because both Democrats and Republicans have claimed that they're going to make it official. And Obama said it, and many in the past have said it. Reagan said it, and Obama said it. Neither one of them have done it, because when it came down to it, they were afraid of it. And you need to look at the data and the numbers, why that is. If there's ever been a time where this could become official, it's this time. And I don't think Trump could have done it on his first term. Here's why I don't think he could have done it on his first term: because he needed Turkey to minimize the amount of havoc in the Middle East on the first term. But I do believe it can happen on the second term, which means it's a great time. You know, when Erdogan, when it became official, he went out there and he said, if you make Armenian genocide official, I'm going to shut down 2 of your bases, military bases that you have. And that's a lot of fear. And U.S. is still working on pushing tariffs on them, which is fine, but it's still not something that's too exciting for those guys, because it is a negotiation going on with the leverage being on whichever side, right? So that's one thing. But the other thing is, when you're looking at this data, you have to realize a few things here. This is the few things that you got to be thinking about. Number one, if you want to go to Kai with this, he'll show you. Go to Kai, he'll help you out. Number one thing you got to keep in mind with this is the following. What is his motive? Trump is not Armenian. He's not emotionally connected to the Armenian community. Trump is not Assyrian. Trump is not Greek. That's the obvious. So you can't talk from the side of, how dare you not do this? Why don't you understand us? That's not something that politicians don't care about that. You have to be, and you can't say what a cold-hearted person Trump, Reagan, Obama is. No, you're not going to win that way. You have to ask, what is important to this person? Data is what matters. In US, the Turkish American community is 500,000 people. That's 500,000 voters. In US, Armenian Americans are around 85,000 to 100,000. Some say it's 250,000, but let's just say 85 to 100,000. Assyrian community is 80,000 to 100,000. And in Greeks is about 1.5 million. Greek Americans is about 1.5 million. So if you just go with Armenian and Assyrian against Turkish has a bigger community and Armenian and Assyrian combined in US. You have to some way also rally the Greek community to want to see this become a reality as well. So that's that part of it for you to be thinking about. The other side is the fact that we have one of the biggest influencer families in the world that resides a few miles away from you guys, which is in LA. And you know who that is, that's the Kardashians. And Kardashians today have a lot of connection with, Kim loving her community. She went back to Armenia with Kanye West, which shows that this isn't just an act, it matters to her. I do believe it matters to all of them who are connected to the Armenian community. That's one argument you got to be thinking about because she does have a lot of influence. The other side you got to be thinking about of connection and influence is the fact that Trump grew up being a fan of Kirk Kerkorian. Most people don't know this. He looked up to Kirk Kerkorian. So Armenians need to go read the book Gambler, which is a story of Kirk Kerkorian, to find out why was this man such a big deal? Does America need more Kirk Kerkorians? Trump was an East Coast. Kirk Kerkorian did in Vegas what a lot of people haven't been able to do. You got to realize this man lived till his late 90s and was doing deals. In his 90s, he was doing deals and he wasn't planning on slowing down. And he built a pretty monstrous portfolio for himself. So there is real estate. Again, everything is about connecting the dots on how to link the stories for somebody to connect. Once you have those things combined, then comes the last hurdle, which is the toughest one. Here's the last one that's the toughest one. Turkey doesn't have a problem identifying the event that happened as a massacre. They've said it in the past before. They don't have any problem calling it a massacre. They don't have any problem calling it a unfortunate event that took place. Their leader will get up and talk about the fact that it's unfortunate what happened, but they're not comfortable tying the numbers, 1.5 million, 300,000. They're not comfortable doing that. The reason why they're not comfortable doing that, nor tying it to a genocide, is because if they tie it to a genocide, they saw what happened to the Jewish community with Germany, because there comes the reparation laws, which reparation laws is people being able to make claims and going back saying that is my land, you owe me this, you owe me that. And unfortunately, that is one of the reasons why the Turkish Empire is not going to be doing that, because if they do, there are a lot of Armenians that are going to come back saying, you owe us this, you owe us that land, you owe us this part, you owe us this much money, all those insurance policies, all those this. That's the biggest hurdle. So if Trump does decide to do this, he's going to do it with a man that will retaliate, and the retaliation will not be pretty, but it will become official. And if Armenians want to go back with the reparation and wanting to make any kind of cases there on restitution, it is not going to be that easy with a country like Turkey. So it's a big hurdle, but the only way to do it, I even made something here because I'm going to be sharing this, and you're the first platform I'm showing this to. For me, it's very simple. This isn't something you want any credit for. This is tweet at Donald Trump on Twitter, make it official, handle Armenian Genocide. This isn't about me. This isn't about you. Nowhere here doesn't have my name on it. This is go at Donald Trump and make it official. If we get 200,000 folks tweeting out Armenian Genocide at Trump and at Mike Pence, I guarantee you they're going to get the attention of those people. They're going to sit there and say, did you see what's going on today? Look how many people are doing this. And especially if Armenians who are influencers go out and do this as well, there are many of them. Some of them are playboys. You know who I'm talking about. Some of them are people that have built an incredible empire for themselves with, movies, with reality TV shows. Every one of them is necessary to make sure this becomes a reality. And I do believe we need to get the Greek community involved as well.
I completely agree, Patrick. I'm glad you touched on the ramifications, the repercussions, and the consequences of what it would mean if the Republic of Turkey labeled the genocide as what it is, a genocide, because there's international law and kind of reparations at play whenever you start using words like genocide. But staying on the Armenian genocide topic, in your opinion, what would be a fair resolution to the genocide issue? Because for many Assyrians, Greeks, Armenians like myself, like you mentioned, an apology just isn't good enough. Many of us demand reparations. We demand restitution, the right of the right to return church properties along with our individual rights to return as well. So in your opinion, what would be a feasible or equitable or right or just solution to this issue?
Why don't you elaborate on what you mean by reparations and restitutions and properties? Why don't you elaborate a little bit more on what you define, and then I'll give you mine.
Okay, so by reparations, obviously monetary reparations, similar to what the Republic of Germany had to do after the Third Reich was overthrown in establishing the state of Israel. And I believe until just recently, they stopped the reparation money. So money to, whether that be Armenian families that have deeds, whether that be the Armenian government. Restitution, obviously land restitution. There's obviously some irredentist values at stake. However, it's difficult to ignore the reality on the ground that there's millions of Kurds that are now living on that land. The situation, the economic situation, would Armenians move back from the diaspora? Would Assyrians move back? Would Pontic Greeks move back? Now it's easier said than done. A lot of Armenians, we're very romantic. We have this romantic sense of nationalism and of Western Armenia. We hang Ararat on our walls and a lot of things like that. But are we ready to return? I'm not sure. Are we ready to give up the comfortable lives we have now to nation build and state build in Western Armenia, in Van, in Sasun, in Dadon, in those areas. And then the return of church properties, obviously, our Holy See has filed a lot of claims, mostly in Cilicia and Sis, where the Holy See used to rest. But also, there's a lot of church properties, monasteries that are now being converted into mosques that are not being properly taken care of. And yeah, hopefully that qualifies as a decent enough elaboration.
So look, for me, if you're gonna go for it, you have to realize the position you have to be in. Meaning, number one, you are not dealing with a reasonable community. You're not, and this is what I mean by reasonable community. You're not dealing with somebody in the Republic of Turkey who is reasonable. He's not going to be willing to be reasonable. Once this decision is made, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be very ugly from their end. But a law is a law is a law. So if you decide to go there and you want to go through restitution, reparation, the land, all of that stuff, it's not going to be as easy as doing what we had to do with Israel. And by the way, even at Israel, look at Israel right now as a nation. How often do you see them being at war? How many different people you think hate them? How many people you think want to get rid of them? It ain't going to be pretty. It's not like you go live in Israel and you're having a time of your life and you're feeling safe all the time like US. It's not the case. Now, obviously, to their credit, they have a good prime minister. Netanyahu's a leader, and he's not afraid, and he stands up, and he's willing to go out there and put his name out there. And even though, if you look at how small of a country Israel is, it's tiny when you look at how small it is. And as far as people wanting to go back, I believe many will go back, but not as many as you think will go back, just like the Jewish community. Many went back, but not as many as people thought were going to go back. The U.S. has a very big presence here when it comes down to, the Jewish community. So, they may negotiate to say, well, yes, we may do this, but with the limits of X, Y, Z. But then that'll require U.S. to get involved in negotiation on behalf of the Armenian. And I don't think they're going to be doing that, because it's kind of like this. Here's the part you have to think about. So somebody comes to you, and let's just say you're married, okay? And your wife comes up to me and she says, Pat, we're having issues and I can't deal with them anymore. I said, why not? Because he's just an unreasonable man. And I said, what are you saying? He wants me to do this, but he also wants me to do this, and I just can't do it. When I tell him I want him to do X, Y, Z, he doesn't want to do it. Then I talked to you and I said, no way in the world you're going to be reasonable. So, but let's just say I can negotiate myself and get involved. What is the benefit of me getting involved into your business and trying to help you guys figure things out? What benefit do I have? Is the benefit that big for US to want to get involved? I don't know. Is the benefit for a world organization to get involved to support this? Maybe, because Turkey is a very important ally to have in the Middle East, because as much as they're unreasonable, they're still a little bit more reasonable than the other unreasonable nations, which you know which ones I'm referencing. It's not, it's pretty obvious out there which ones you cannot sit down and have any conversations with. I'm from Iran. The list is a long list of many of them there, right? So it is, but it isn't. So it's not as easy, because Trump is a negotiator, and Trump's not going to give up an ace just for 100,000 Armenians and 100,000 Assyrians in U.S. He will not do it because it's going to get him deeper and it's going to hurt the relationship with Turkey and U.S. not for a couple years. This is going to be decades that it's going to hurt the relationship between U.S. and Turkey. So there has to be something to be given up to get in return. And so one has to see what Turkey wants that Turkey can get. And if it's the tariffs to not be as strong, is Trump really going to be lenient on the tariffs to help the Armenian, genocide be invalid? I don't know about that. I just don't think it's as black as white as people think it is. I think somebody has to go a lot deeper. To me, if you ask me, this will be my biggest counsel to the Armenian community. This will be my biggest counsel to the Armenian community. If Trump does it, more power to him. By the way, if there's anybody that would, it's him. He's not a regular guy. He's a little bit different than every one of them that we've ever had. He's made a lot of decisions that nobody thought he was going to go with. He's still continuing with the wall. He's still continuing with a lot of tariffs, strong tariffs with China. He's still continuing with a lot of things. So you have to assume, yes, we have to go out there and make noise and do this part 100%. But what is the long-term solution? Not just short-term. What is the long-term solution? Here's a long-term solution. Steven Spielberg's made a name for himself in Hollywood. I can go on with how many different industries the Jewish community has made a name for themselves. The Armenian community's got some work to do. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm somebody that's very proud Armenian Assyrian. I wear it on my sleeve, and I'm glad that I'm half Armenian, half Assyrian. It means a lot to me, both of them, even Iran does. But we got some work to do. We got to build some bigger companies. We got to go get involved in politics. We got to go get involved and become governors. I know former governor of California was an Armenian governor. I think his first name is also Patrick, I believe, right? Was that his first name, Patrick, as well, or no?
Are you talking about George Der-Megerdichian?
Oh, George Der-Megerdichian. Yeah, his nephew is one of our associates. George Der-Megerdichian, Armenian. We need more names in politics, in business, in Hollywood, in music, in every possible way. We need more of them to have that kind of an influence. So when we come together, everybody shivers because the vote doesn't matter as much today as it once did. And once we do that, you don't have to worry. Look at the Latino community right now, how much voice they have. Look at the Jewish community. Even though they're not a big community, they got a lot of voice, and they're not a big community. We can do the same as well, and but we got some work to do there. The other part, as far as right now goes with Trump, right now, the best thing we can do is make some noise, get noticed, see what they do, and then make a case on why there would be a motivation for him to do it, Trump, and why there'd be a motivation for Turkey to do it. If we pull that off, then it could happen. But it's going to take a lot of work. It can't just be a winging situation. Well, let's just hope they're going to agree to this. It's going to be way more than that.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously you touched on what Armenians on a grassroots level should do. Like you said, try to enter these different industries and become movers and shakers in their respective industries, be it Hollywood, be it politics, be it business. I wanted to ask and transition that to Armenian, for example, organizations or lobby groups. What do you think they should do? Because they have more political clout than what individuals may have. For example, a lot of them work towards free, independent, united Armenia. A lot of them work towards issues pertaining to Artsakh and the self-determination of Artsakh, so that, for example, genocides like the one that happened in Baku as well, in the early 20th century, when these massacres kind of repeat in the 90s as well, with Baku, with Maraga, with Sumgait. So those don't happen. What direction do you think Armenian lobbies should take?
Okay, so let's just first talk about lobbyists, period, not just Armenians. Let's talk about lobbyists. Okay, when does lobbying work? When does lobbying work? Lobbying works when you have enough backing from people to help you continuously lobby. So to lobby, you need a lot of money, you need a lot of power, you need a lot of influence, okay? So that's that part. A challenge with sometimes lobbying as well as, I'm just not a big, I'm not a big advocate of it. Let me explain to you why. I don't think that's gonna be the solution, because I'm in the financial industry. There's lobbying going on all the time. And lobbyers, to me, do their best to go out there and get the job done. But you have to see how the influencers look at lobbyists. What is their point of view on lobbyists? Do they look at them and say, oh my gosh, we better make a decision or else, okay? And how can you really make the lobbying move? Is the move gonna be, how come you don't wanna make this a real event? Look what we did for the Jewish community. We have to do this because it's unfair. That unfair argument is not gonna fly. We have work to do. We have to really go out there and do some stuff. Look, years ago, I walked into a hospital. My dad had a heart attack, and it was at UCLA Medical Center off the 5 freeway, right by the casino. If you know where that casino is, off the 5 freeway, whatever that casino is, Commerce, I think it is. There's a hospital right there. So I go to the hospital. I go upstairs. I'm 23 years old. The nurse is mistreating my dad. And I'm like, you don't talk to my dad like that. My dad had just had a heart attack, and I lost it. Well, they kicked me out of the hospital. They called the cops on me. And I said, what are you doing? You don't talk to my dad like that. This is a customer of yours. He says, no, 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 no. This is a public facility. You're not paying for this. Taxpayers are. You don't get to tell us what to do. You need to leave this place. They escorted me outside of the hospital. I went in the car downstairs. I cried like a little baby. I said, this will never happen to my family ever again. I was $49,000 in debt at that moment. For no one in the world knew who I was. Patrick Bet David is a nobody at that time. Zero. I sat there and I said, the Bet David family will never be pushed around like this ever again. You're going to have to kill me for this to ever happen again. It ain't going to happen like this ever again. My dad and my family is going to get the respect. Then I went to work and I earned my stripes. Now people listen to me. We need that part. So one isn't enough. We need hundreds of this to be taking place for people to be proud to say, listen, I know you may not know about Armenians and Assyrians today, but I guarantee you go look at the history books. There's not a single place you're not going to see about Armenians and Assyrians. U.S. has only been around since 1776. Armenians and Assyrians been around since, you know, anytime you go back, you're going to hear about our stories. You open up Genesis and you read about Assyrians. You open up any book about Christianity, you read about Armenians. What are we talking about here? But you can't get that kind of credibility if you don't have enough players. We need to sit in a room with 100 of the most influential Armenians and Assyrians and say, guys, we're looking good. We are looking good. Banking, real estate, entertainment, acting, music, financial, stocks, private equity, you know, social media, books, liquor, alcohol, phenomenal. We got power, guys. Let's go pull it together. 3 governors, 6 senators, 8 congressmen, 28 mayors of big cities. We're looking pretty. So guys like you, by the way, the way you spoke is very inspirational. I'm talking to you right now. The way you spoke with the beard, the way you spoke, guys like you who are sitting here thinking you're a 22, 23-year-old and your partner that said, I promise you they're going to know about who we are with the Armenian Media Company. That's what fires me up, because it's about banking on young guys like you that are true believers that want to do something about it. When this guy was 23 years old and that happened to me with my dad, I was the guy that was at the nightclubs in LA 5, 6, 7 days a week chasing women. The next day, my priorities changed like this. My friends couldn't recognize me because these eyes changed. Once these eyes changed, priorities changed. Then everything became a reality. I think that is the guaranteed long-term solution. Currently, look, as a businessman, you run a company, you always have short-term plans. You got mid-term plans, you got long-term plans. Short-term plan is what? Listen, let's get a couple 100,000 tweets out there with Armenian Genocide, handle at Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Get your mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, everybody on Facebook talk about, go on Twitter, do this. Everybody on Facebook needs to go do that. This is short-term. Long-term is you're Armenian. You're watching this between the ages of 18 to 42. Who are you going to be in life? How are you planning on making your influence? If any country wants to make any kind of an influence to grow in a nation, what do? They start off by saying, what sector do you want to go in? Which side do you want to go? How you want to make your influence? Well, I'm into being a good teacher. Really? Go be a professor at Stanford University, Mr. Armenian. You, that's what I'm going to do. Go for it. Go write some books. Challenge people's conventional thinking. What do you want to do? I don't know. I kind of like to debate. I always argue with my dad and my mom. Phenomenal. Go become an attorney. Go to the best school in law school, earn the right, go become an attorney, work your way up, work for a big law firm, then go become a governor, then go become somebody, and then you have a voice. What do you want to do? Well, I got to tell you, man, I'm all about creativity and art and all this other stuff. Go do something with your art. What do you want to do? I'm all about numbers. When I look at numbers and business and all this stuff, I always like to make money. You do? Go to Wharton Business School, start some companies, make your billions. Now let's go do something about it. I think that's the long-term solution of locking in the Armenian and the Syrian community. Short-term is this.
Okay, cool. That leads us perfectly to the next question. So Patrick, there's a lot of people in the Armenian community, a lot of rhetoric like this is commonplace that, you know, they say Turkey failed or revenge is to survive. I'm not a fan of that. I come from the same school of thought as you. I believe that our revenge should be not only to survive, but to thrive. And you hit the nail on the head perfectly. You're a testament to that. Can you talk a little bit more about how you became the successful entrepreneur you are today?
Yeah, so, you know, there's a few things I cannot stand. You have to realize I grew up in a family where my mother's side, they were all communists. They believed Karl Marx was a saint. Literally, that's what my family believed, my mother's side. And they're the Armenians ones. By the way, there's a lot of Armenian communists around the world, and they swear by Stalin and Lenin and all that stuff, right? Okay, so that's that part. Now, there is a challenge to that way of thinking, which I'll get into here in a second, but let me talk about my dad's side. My dad's side, they're imperialists. They love the Shah, hence the painting behind me, the Shah's in the painting, and a lot of other characters. And by the way, hence my mother's side, if you notice what book is in the middle, they're debating Communist Manifesto and Atlas Shrugged. So they're debating capitalism versus communism, because that's really the argument in my family. Mom and dad, they both argued, you know, rich people are greedy, and my dad argued poor people are lazy. Now, who is right? Okay. Both sides are right, partially. What does that mean? There are a lot of greedy rich people. There are a lot of greedy rich people. Matter of fact, the U.S. gives us program to bail some companies out, and Harvard, who's got $40 billion in their endowment, goes and gets an $8.566 million check from taxpayers. What for? You don't need to be bailed out. You got $40 billion you're sitting on in your endowment. What are you doing getting $8.5 million? My board came up to me. We qualified to get millions of dollars of bailout. I sat down with my board. I said, let me ask you guys a question. Do we really need this money? We really don't need this money. Why are we asking for this money? No, we don't. I mean, if it's available, we should take it. I'm not taking the money. If I don't need it, let somebody else who needs it take it. We worked our butts off to not be able to take anything. I don't like to owe anything to anybody. We're not taking that money. Okay, we're not. You sure you don't? We're not taking that money. All right, then we're not taking that money. Great. We're not taking that money. So let somebody else take it. So now, going back to the messaging, I talked to a lot of Armenians. And it doesn't matter if it's Armenians, if it's Assyrians, if it's sometimes Persians, or if it's, there are many communities. I'm not going to just put it as Armenians and Assyrians. I can go on a lot of other communities, but I'm going to tick off more communities, which is what I'm famous for doing. I'm regularly pissing people off, but I can't help myself but be myself. There is nothing more unattractive. There is nothing more unattractive than a person who thinks they're a victim. Nothing more unattractive than a person who continuously thinks they're a victim. Now, let me unpack that before some people jump on my throat and say, Pat, you mean to tell me there's no victims out there? Of course there's victims out there. Of course there is. Yes, there is domestic violence that is real, and it happens 100%. Yes, there are those who are constantly being bullied around by a lot of different people. Absolutely there is. There are victims who fall for a lot of different things. But one of the things you can't do is you can't go around saying, well, you know, they took advantage of us and they did this and they did that. The more and more you repeat that statement, the more and more you give them power, and you lose. I refuse to do that. One time my dad and I went to a family gathering. My parents are Armenian and Syrian, and you know what it is when Armenians or Syrian families get divorces? It's like a big deal to them. It's not like the American, oh, marriage didn't work out, you move on. To the Armenian and Syrian community, it's the end of the world if you get a divorce, right? So we go to a family gathering. It's Christmas, 2004. And I go to this gathering at one of our richest family members. And I go there and I notice, it's just my dad and I notice one of these relatives is talking down to my dad. And it really irritated me. I went up, I said, I'm sorry, who are you talking to like this? Oh, Patrick John, all this kind of bullshit. I said, I'm sorry, Who are you talking to like this? Why are you talking to my dad like that? You realize 30 years ago, he employed you. Just because he sacrificed everything to bring his kids to me, you don't talk to my dad like that. And my dad is a non-confrontational guy. He's nothing like me. He's the nicest man in the world. Everybody loves him. Everybody trusts him. I said, Dad, we're getting the hell out of here. I said, listen, if you ever want me to come back to your family gathering, you don't ever talk to my family like that. Patrick, we were just joking. You don't joke when I'm around. I don't take jokes like that lightly. I don't take them. You want to have fun? I'll have fun with you. You want to tell me sports jokes? I'll tell it with you. You want to tell me any other kind of jokes? I'll hang in there with you. You come on my family, I'm enemy of the state #1. I'm the guy. Dad, we're leaving. Patrick, please, this is my family. Don't do this. I'm not doing this right now. We're leaving. If you're not coming outside, I'm getting in the car and I'm driving by myself. You have to figure something out. I'm not staying around these guys. They're not going to talk down at us like this. We went in the car. For 30 minutes, I went home. I had a family meeting. I brought everybody over. I said, let me tell you guys this. Nobody talks to the Bet-David family like this. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your brother, sister, mom, dad. No one talks to us like this. My dad says, what is wrong with you? Who do you think you are? Don't you realize we're just normal people? You didn't go to college. We didn't do anything significant. These are family. I said, that's not going to happen. I said, you're going to be so proud with the decision you made to come to America because we're going to make you proud. Fast forward, those same family members want us to go to every single event nowadays. What happened? It's because I don't want to be seen as a victim because I am not. Here's why. When I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky in the airborne at my Army unit, and it's middle of the night, everybody wants a letter. We're sitting in our bunks. We're in boot camp. This was at AIT at Fort Jackson. We're in our boot camp, and a couple of the guys are sitting there, and they were crying. One of the guys was crying because his wife left him for his best friend. Pretty painful experience when you're in boot camp and you get a letter from your wife saying, I left you for your best friend. He's crying. He's in tears. He's emotional. Another guy hasn't heard from his wife for weeks, no letter, and it's devastating when you're not getting a letter from your wife and you can't make phone calls. Your imagination just goes nonstop to some ugly places. I sat him and I said, guys, you know, I just got to tell you guys a couple of things. He says, what's that? I said, can you see me right now? Yeah. I said, can you smell how bad this place smells? Yeah. I said, touch my shoulder real quick. Touches my shoulder. What's wrong with you, Pat? Did you feel my shoulder? Yes. Okay. Can you hear what I'm saying to you right now? Yes. Can you taste? Yes. Can you walk? Yes. We have all the gifts necessary to go out there and make an impact. Everything's going to be all right, guys. We got all the tools. You ain't got nothing to worry about. That's the mindset we need more of us to have. We need more of our elderly parents to not pass this victimhood mentality to their kids and their grandkids, because your grandkid could be the next kid that builds the next MGM, that becomes the next legendary governor that makes a massive impact in Michigan, in California, in Florida, and people write about. So the language being passed down from grandfathers, grandmothers to their kids and their grandkids many times has a lot more influence than people think it does. You need to talk a bigger language. Son, you can do whatever you want to do. Grandson, inches umanas tu. Duasa inches umanas gnara. Menk hayenk, menk asorienk, menk normal martkan chenks. Menk inch wars menk aran kanenk menk. Dugna inch wars mes ara. Let's make something special with our family bloodline. When you cut this, this is not regular blood. This is Armenian and Assyrian blood. It's hot. It's very hot. Why is it hot? Because we've gone through a lot of stuff. This blood is being passed on generation to generation to generation. And many times to use it as a pain to go out there and do something bigger for yourself. Because in life, this is one of the things I've noticed, and I'll turn it over to you here. Here's one of the things I've noticed is, I don't know why. People that do the biggest things in their lives typically had a very difficult upbringing. I don't know why. I don't know why that many people that had an average, normal upbringing don't do a lot of big things. You almost need some strange things going on with their families. Yesterday, the documentary for Michael Jordan started called The Last Dance. If you've never read the book, The Life of Michael Jordan, you probably don't know how weird of a life this guy lived. He had a very weird life. His parents, very weird upbringing. If you don't know a story of Jobs, written by Walter Isaacson, how his mother, who was Armenian, gave him up to adoption. You know, his mother gave him up to adoption, and he grew up saying, why would you give me up? Why wouldn't you keep me? His entire life, he felt like he wasn't wanted. Look what he did. He goes and builds a company like Apple, employs all these people. He dies. His legacies live until today. We have to start looking at it that our difficult lives and the situations that we went through has prepared us for something big only and only if we don't see ourselves as victims, except people that are capable of doing something big. We do that long term, the world's going to know about the Armenian and Syrian community.
Brilliantly said. Okay. Within the Armenian community, there's, as you might know, there's a huge stigma associated with taking an unconventional career path, taking career paths away from being doctors, lawyers, engineers. Did you have any pressures like that growing up? How'd you overcome them? And what advice would you give to budding young Armenian entrepreneurs that would want to start that business idea or manifest that venture, but might have those familial or cultural pressures?
Yeah, so again, I'll talk about it from the parent perspective, then the kid perspective. So let's talk about the parent perspective. I freaking love the fact that parents put that kind of pressure on Armenian kids. I love it. I love to say, hey, doctor, lawyer, engineer. So that kids may come back, not kids. When I say kids, I mean the parents' kids. I'm not, if a 22-year-old, and I'm not calling him a kid, but he's his parents' kids, right? So kids may come to me and say, Pat, that's pretty ludicrous what you just said. I said, no, you just have to know your parents are not fully unpacking what it really means to be an engineer, doctor, lawyer. What they're trying to say is, go do something big with your life. They're not trying to say, go be an engineer, lawyer, doctor. Waste management is a multi-billion-dollar empire. What do? Pick up the trash. The guy who started waste management is a billionaire. Don't just go pick up trash. Build an empire that picks up trash for around the world. If you're going to go out there and, be a place that's a dry cleaners, don't just create a small dry cleaners and you make 100, 200 grand a year. Go build a dry cleaners that becomes a franchising model and you bring $100 million of revenues per year. I guarantee your dad's not going to care if you went into dry cleaning instead of being a doctor or lawyer. And if you're going to be a doctor, by the way, most doctors are broken. They have no clue how money works. I deal with a lot of doctors. They make good income, but they don't have a lot of money to themselves. They rely on their income for a long time. Doctors are very, very broke. Don't let them fool you. You get any Armenian doctor that sits with me, 95% of them don't have as much money as people think they have because they don't know what to do with their finances. If you're going to be a doctor, build a franchise of doctors. Go build a model where there's hundreds of doctors working with you, not one or two. If you're going to go be a lawyer, don't just be a lawyer. Build a massive law practice that hundreds of lawyers work with you. The idea is to do something big. I have 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old, right? My son is at work right now with me. I'm swapping him. I'm at the office every day, by the way. I'm not at my house. Since they shut down the government, I've been at the office every single day except for 2 Sundays. Every day I'm at the office except for 2 Sundays. And people call me and they say, isn't that the irresponsible thing to do? If the president of the United States is working at his office, I'm going to be working. You can't stop me from working. I didn't come to America for somebody to tell me, sit home. I'm not a prisoner. I didn't break the law. I'm simply going out there trying to grow my business that I built through blood and sweat all these years. No one's going to tell us to stop. We're working. We're working is what we're doing. Well, my kids come to work. You know what the language is with my kids? Here's what my language with my kids. The only thing I look for with my kids is to see something inspiring them. Give you an idea. My son, when he came over here and he had the iPad, he says, Dad, what do I do now? He's 6 years old. He had to read 8 pages of Michael Jordan's book. It's a big book that he has to read. And he's going through right now as a 6-year-old. He has a hard time with a lot of the words, but he had to do it. Then he had to come and write me the 25 words. These are 2nd grade words. He's in kindergarten right now. And then he had to make 51 basket shots right behind me. And behind me is a court I put in my garage at the office. And then he has to sit there and listen to Michael Jordan's documentary and tell me about what he took away from it. Then afterwards, he can go play a little bit if he wants to. And then he has to come and do 8 more pages, shoot 51 more baskets, write some more words, watch another documentary, and then he can go back and do the same thing. Why? Because that's the standard of the family. I'm not going to tell him go be a doctor, lawyer, dentist, or engineer. I'm going to tell him whatever you do it big. When we go to sleep, these are the couple things we talk about. The David family, we lead in every situation we're in. We respect people because everybody has something to teach you. We improve because improving is what gives us a peace of mind. And we love people because everybody needs love. We don't get bullied. We don't bully people. And there's 4 things we pray for with God. We ask God to give us courage, wisdom, tolerance, understanding. That's what we do as the David family. So I think for parents' side that they're challenging their kids, maybe keep challenging your kids, but allow a little bit more of a spectrum. If your boys want to build the biggest Armenian media company out there, I'd much rather have my kids go out there and build a massive Armenian media empire than go be a lawyer or a doctor. You can make a much bigger impact building a media empire than just trying to be a lawyer or a doctor, try to make your parents happy. Now, if somebody wants to be a doctor and it makes their parents happy, more power to them. But I actually don't mind parents having high expectations from their kids in the Armenian community. I think we need more of that.
Awesome. Okay. Kind of staying on this entrepreneurship scene. As you know, in October, the WCIT, the World Congress on Information Technology, was held in Yerevan. Many IT moguls like Gary Vaynerchuk, Alexis Ohanian, Kim Kardashian were headliners at the event, among other executives of top companies. An event like that taking place in Armenia is a testament to its developing economy, its growing IT scene. It's emerging as sort of a Silicon Valley in that part of the world. With that, how familiar are you with the entrepreneurial and startup scene in Armenia?
Extremely well, because we hired their engineers and they're incredible. I mean, when I'm right now, we're doing a project that's a few $1 million project, and some of the ones they're using are from Armenia. And the guy who's a white guy in Texas, a pretty well-known guy in the IT world, he says he trusts Armenian engineers more than Indian engineers. I said, come on. Yes, I'm telling you, Armenian engineers are starting to become the best engineers worldwide. I said, are you kidding me? He says, absolutely. And this is not an Armenian guy. This is a full-on Texan. He's a full-on white guy, okay, is what he is. He says, no, Armenian engineers are becoming some of the best engineers around the world. So I hear about it all the time. We use them. We hire them. They're very effective.
Patrick, lastly, moving forward, what are some of your plans and goals for the future?
What are some of my plans and goals in the future? So number one is my current insurance company is growing rapidly. Last month, we measure our month to month, meaning March of 2020 versus March of 2019. In March of 2019, we sold 4,779 insurance policies in 1 month. This last March of 2020, we sold 6,419 policies in 1 month with the pandemic. Last March, we sold 203 annuities. This March, we sold 313 annuities. Last March, we did $8.75 million of annuities. This March, we did around $20 million of annuities. That doesn't count our life business. And we're not a big annuity shop. We're an insurance shop. So the insurance company has grown rapidly. I've been going at this for nearly 11 years with the insurance company. I told myself when I got involved in the financial industry, I'll be going for 20 years. My 20 years is coming up in the next 2 years. So I'll probably be doing this for another 2 more years. After that, it'll be media, and the media will be all around driving entrepreneurs, creators, innovators worldwide, and that's going to be a whole different ballgame. I mean, Valuetainment is going to become a massive media company that the world's going to know about. And then the next phase, I'll leave that to a surprise when that time comes. But we're going to play ball for a long time. If God keeps me healthy, I'm going to be playing ball for a very, very long time. You finished it? Yeah, you liked it? That's good. You learned? So guess what you can do now? You can go do whatever you want to do right now. There you go.
Well, thank you. Yeah, much health, much success, much prosperity to you and your family, Patrick. With that, I think that concludes the interview. Everyone, make sure you guys go follow Patrick Bet-David on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Subscribe to his YouTube channel, Valuetainment. Patrick, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.